Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Ramblings from Two Meddling Kids. I'm Edward Hunt, joined by my fellow hunting enthusiast,
Mike Cunningham.
and we are the Meddling Kids. And today we'll be reviewing The Deer Hunter. Why are we reviewing The Deer Hunter, you ask? A movie that came out in 1978? Well, it's Oscar season, y'all, and when we release this episode, it'll be one day after the Oscars. So we thought to ourselves, could we review a movie that's going for the Oscars? What are we really thinking? And then Mike came up with the genius idea of let's look at Oscar bait movies. So, Mike, real quick, can you explain what an Oscar bait movie is for the audience?
So basically, it's a movie that comes out late in the award season. So usually right around December, around that time, just to meet the eligibility of an Oscar movie. So like, I think it needs to be out with like at least 2 weeks or something like that, or maybe even less. Because I feel like a lot of the Netflix films now, like they'll have. Well, you saw that with what was it? The Knives Out movie.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It was like they need at least, or even The Killer, they need just at least a week in theaters or something like that to be eligible for Oscar contention. So I think, but yeah, I think originally it was just like movies like that are put out right in time to be nominated. All right, and then they'll have their like a bigger theatrical run in the new year since it's it comes out in December. And I think the reason we picked this one is because this one technically, I'm reading on Wikipedia. I don't know. I could have done a little bit of deeper research, but it was just like,
Wikipedia is like a phenomenal resource. All right. No one badmouth Wikipedia. All right.
but yeah, it's just like The Deer Hunter was like kind of the first movie to use this Oscar bait method. So it came out December December 8th, 1978. And the marketing was basically they realized that this film is it's a very not
Dark.
touchy subject, but it's a dark subject. It was hard to market it. So they went to a guy that worked on Broadway, and it was like, how would you market this film if you were in our shoes? And they basically came up with the idea. It was just like the best way to market this movie, especially in the '78, right? You don't have social media or some of the more contemporary methods we have to market films. But it was just like if the film said Oscar nominated or Oscar award winning. Then it would get more people in the theaters. So like that's what their marketing push was to get it. Not like they had very small screenings in LA in '78 just for the critics to get high critic scores because obviously this is a very good film. I'm not going to take away from it. Oscar bait makes it seems like there's some negative connotation. That's not always the case.
Yeah.
Because I always thought Oscar bait just before even doing any of this podcasting. I thought it was just something like you're tackling issues that the Oscars are looking for, right? You're checking boxes, not realizing that it has more to do with the release date than the actual subject matter. Yes. So, yeah. So they had a real small release in December 1978 just for critics, just to get the word out. And then after it got nominated, they had a bigger run in '79. But it was like by that time it was Oscar nominated and stuff like that. So a lot more people went to go see it. Because like it's a 3-hour movie, it's a very dark subject matter, and it's really very tough scenes and stuff like that. So it was just like in order to get the masses to see it, this was a method that they used back in '78.
Makes sense. Cool. Thank you. And considering that was all off the cuff, bravo. But yeah, I have also, I think, so I think, as Mike said, The Deer Hunter is like one of the first movies that ever was kind of considered Oscar bait like that. I think as time has gone on, it also still has been that other definition of movies that are specifically to try and win an Oscar. But as a whole, yeah. So that's what we decided, The Deer Hunter. And boy, howdy, if you haven't seen it yet, you probably should. So for those of you joining us for the first time, we will never spoil anything in the first, let's say, 5-10 minutes of our show. We'll give a 0 to 5 review. Then we'll give some more background, and then more like a scene play-by-play. For a movie quite this long, we might be a little not quite as play-by-play-y. We'll see. Depends on how we feel like talking about it. But, Mike, The Deer Hunter, 0 to 5, are you ready?
I am.
What'd you give it?
3.5.
Okay.
I mean, it might bump it up to a 4. I think, honestly, my biggest gripe with this film was the runtime. We've spoken about this several times about longer films. And like I said, I don't know if it's my attention span being that like the movies that I watch, but it was just like this movie seemed very, very long. and it was
Yeah.
like in the scenes that were impactful seemed kind of run through, and then like other
Mhm.
things were like kind of drawn out. Like that might have been the longest wedding scene I've ever seen in my life. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
rom coms don't make wedding scenes that long. Like it was
Mhm.
a whole hour in, and I was like, I have yet to see one deer. Like, but it was like it was a very, and it was like it was interesting to me because I'm sitting there watching it, and I think my problem was I started watching it at midnight, so I was like, I'm trying to get to bed, wrap this up.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but it was I'm watching his wedding scene, like what is this gonna have some reference later, or is this gonna be important? And I was like, probably not, if I'm being honest with you.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think my biggest gripe was like it was very long,
Yeah.
and but the scenes that like obviously that I feel like a lot of people remember about this movie were very strong, were
Mhm.
active. Like so, going back to the elements of film, like I think the performances were great. De Niro, Christopher Walken, Meryl Streep. Those were all like phenomenal performances. I think even it reminded me of Francis Ford Coppola and the
Okay.
Godfather, which I feel
Right.
like they came out around the same time. I feel like Godfather was like 78, 77, something like that, or maybe 76. Don't know.
Maybe.
I'm
He's
not gonna
probably.
research,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was giving me the God like that Godfather film. So it was like very much
Mhm.
a film set in its own time,
Yeah.
but still timeless in a way.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, so it was like I enjoyed the performances. The story was great. It was just very interesting to see like this director's take on war and the effect that it has on people, right?
Yeah.
Especially back then with the limited services for mental health and things like that, and really helping people recover from
Mhm.
being in war and stuff like that. So it was just like I thought the story was great. The acting was great. The cinematography was great, even for its time. It was like it didn't seem old when
Mhm.
I watched it for the most part. But yeah, I think my biggest issue was just the runtime because I felt like a lot of the scenes could have been cut down. Like this could have been easily a 2 hour and 20-minute movie
Yeah.
or something like that. But yeah, so for the like I said, I could bump it up to a 3.5. I'm sorry, to a 4.
Mhm.
Right now I'm in a 3.5 just because it was like that runtime um, really like messed with me
Cool.
at certain points.
Yeah.
Especially like the introduction. Like I said, it was an hour
Yeah.
for a wedding,
Yeah.
Um, and it was, I guess, once again, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah. So for right now, I'm giving this movie a 3.5. It was like I said, the everything about this movie was done very well.
Mhm.
I think my biggest gripe was just the runtime. So,
Sure.
but yeah, 3.5 for me.
Cool. I'm going to start with a 4 for myself. Although I do agree it was long. It was, I mean, yeah, 3 hour runtime. It's pretty intense. And yeah, the fact I remember pausing it like an hour into the movie and like we still were like, when the word, like, so I think it's a couple things. Like, you look at it, I thought from a storytelling perspective, it does feel a little dated, but that's just because we're so much used to like more modern movies. But as a
Hmm.
whole, the story itself is phenomenal. De Niro, Walken, Streep, Savage. I'm blanking on the guy, but he was also, the guy Stan who was in the Godfather movies.
Yeah,
John,
Castle.
yeah, Cattle. Performances across the board were really great. The story was heart wrenching. Seeing the effects of all of this on people was crazy. Um, and yeah, so a lot of really great things for the movie for sure. I wasn't quite as turned off by the runtime, I think, as you were, Mike, but I do agree that it did feel long. But it was very much all right, we're really trying to build up here. We're really trying to see all these characters. But yeah, like when you have this whole, I guess, slight spoiler here, but you have this whole like 5 minute scene of Robert De Niro running naked down the street. And I'm like, it's did not need to be quite so long potentially, but I kind of attribute that a little bit to the fact that it's an older movie.
Mhm.
And like there's just, to get that slow burn because it is. There are a lot of really slow burn, tense moments of this movie. And then when it happens, it hits you quick, and I think trying to figure out those differentials are um, interesting for sure. But as a whole, I mean, it's a touching movie. You feel for all these characters. Except for Stan, because he's kind of a douche. You like all of these characters, and you even like Stan in certain aspects too. He's just literally a douche. Um, but yeah, so 4 out of 5 for me. There's a lot to love about this movie for sure. I know it ranks very high up there for a lot of people, and I can absolutely see why. Um, but Yeah, so solid. 4 to 5. Cool. Let's get some background on this thing. So we probably touched a little bit on the background already, but what else we got? What are we thinking? All right.
Yeah, so Deer Hunter, it was released December 8th, 1978. The
Mhm.
runtime was 3 hours and 3 minutes. The budget was 15 million. The box office was 49 million. So I assume it was a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I would assume,
70s too. So
especially in like 78. So
yeah, I don't know how much money that is by today's standards.
Mhm.
Yeah.
what was I saying? Oh yeah, the Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 86 for critics, 91 for audiences. So
Okay.
I think very well received by both
Mhm.
audience and critics. The genre is war drama. Excuse me.
Mhm.
It was directed by Michael Cimino, who had done Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. I think that was his biggest movie prior, but I don't think that's something I've ever seen. But also, it's 78, so
Yeah.
anything prior outside of the ones that really stand out, I don't think I would have really seen.
Mhm.
Um, the casting, you have Robert De Niro as Michael, Christopher Walken as Nick, Mel
Mhm.
Streep as Linda, John Savage as Steven, John Cazale as Stan, and then George Zunza.
Mhm.
Sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, as John.
Yeah.
The tagline is one of the most important and powerful films of all time, which is, God damn it. But I think maybe that's how they got the, like, once again, we talk about the marketing for the Oscar baitness of it. I think maybe that's how they got it.
They are patting themselves on the back with this one. I mean, it did win Best Picture, right? When it
That's
came.
what, yeah, I was going to say that next. So it was just like, it won five out of it was nominated for 9
Okay.
Academy Awards. It did win 5, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Christopher Walken, and then Best Editing and Best Sound.
Okay.
So I mean, once again, it did the marketing to get Oscar nominated did work.
Yeah.
So
So you said it was nominated for 9 Oscars, though?
nominated for 9, yes.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, The Return of the King was nominated for 11. So, but they're not saying
That
they're the most influential, permanent best movie of all time. All right.
was another thing I was looking at, thinking at like either the most nominated, who has the most awards and stuff like that. But I thought it would be a bit more interesting to go with Oscar bait movies
Mhm.
because clearly, like I said, my understanding of Oscar bait without even looking into it was just an assumption that they were checking boxes to get recognized by the Oscars. So that
Yeah.
didn't even speak to the quality of the film. It was more about, well, we got this in there, we got this
Yeah.
clearly for the Oscar. So it was like, that's why I thought it was more interesting to do an Oscar bait movie because obviously they did
Mhm.
certain things to get nominated. Was it worth
For
them
sure.
getting nominated? Right. I thought it would
Yeah.
be more because something nominated 11 times. Clearly, we're going to give it 4s and 5s. Like that's just
Mhm.
without
It's,
without a doubt.
you
So
have to.
I was trying to do something a little bit more contentious, I guess, where we
Mhm. For sure. Well, with that, too, I mean, did you ever see The Holdovers?
yes.
I meant to see The Holdovers while it was still in theaters. I think I just didn't really have
It's on
time.
Peacock now. You're good.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so I will watch it. But I saw that movie, and I'm sure it's a phenomenal movie. But when I saw that movie, I was like, that's an Oscar bait movie. You have
Mm,
the grumpy curmudgeon, you have the
yeah.
misunderstood teen, you have
And
the
I'm just in the theater yelling, "The all is lost,
yeah,
mode."
exactly, yeah, 100%. Yeah. But cool, awesome. Thank you for the background, Mike. So, The Deer Hunter, it's a very simple movie. Just a couple of guys crack some brewskis, go out hunting. Right? That's what this is about.
A bit, honestly.
Not that far off.
So we open up really. It's this small town in Western Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
I believe it was like Clareton or something. Clareton. He says it later in the movie. He spelled it out and everything, and I still missed it. It was 3 hours. I don't know which one for me. Uh, but yeah, it's a small town in Pennsylvania. It's a very small community. There's a steel mill there. That's where Mike, Nick, and Steve. Those are our main characters basically.
Mhm.
And we get introduced to them, excuse me, on their last day at the steel mill. The 3 of them are shipping off to go to Vietnam
Yeah.
um, in a few days or whatever. So it's just like we meet them at the steel mill, and then they kind of go off and go to the bar to hang out. And I think it was very interesting to see how tight knit this community was because like we also find out that Steven is engaged to be married, and so
Mhm.
like it seems like the entire town for the most part is
Yeah.
invited to the wedding, is like preparing for it and everything like that. So like after they leave Still
Actually,
middle.
just a quick comment on that because my grandmother on my mom's side is from kind of like a small Pennsylvania town. Like I think I have like family members that are like coal miners and everything, and just even like going through those towns. I mean, they're small and like everyone's like. I remember she and my cousins and aunts because I think she was one of 11. You know what I mean? So all of them have like pointed out all of these buildings, and I think that it kind of got that feel of that's what a small town's all about. Everybody knows each
Yeah.
other. It also explains why she's so gossipy. Sorry, Mimo, I love you, but she's always in everyone's business because I think that's what they do.
Trust me, I know. I learned at the wedding. We're good.
Exactly.
But I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
100%. Yeah, she is just like, if she can be in your business, she's going to be in your business. But yeah.
Yeah, so like, and that's interesting that you say that. So like, we have the guys at the bar, and they're like hanging out, talking about they want to go deer hunting one last time before they ship off. And then we jump to we meet the bride, who's trying on her dress. I think her name is Angela. Excuse me. Angela's trying on her dress, and then like she does like she puts it on, and then she kind of rubs her belly to kind of like you can kind of see like, oh, she might be possibly like pregnant or something like that.
Yeah.
And then talking about the gossiping, you have Steven's mom, who is at the church or whatever, and just like literally just lamenting about how the fact that like he's getting married. And then she even brings up the fact that it was like, and his bride is not so thin, if you know what I mean, kind of also implying.
Look, I'm not saying nothing, but you know, hey,
it was that gossipy, gossipy mother or whatever. And then so we meet the guys, our main three guys, plus Stan and John,
and Axel,
and John. They're at the bar, they're hanging out, and then we meet Angela, the bride. We meet Steven's mom, who was at the church talking to the priest, and then we also meet Linda, who races home and you see like she's preparing a tray of food. She takes it to her father, and her father's like very much a drunk and abusive. Like he strikes her across the face, and like she still tries to like take care of him, and he kind of just passes out.
Yeah.
And then so like after they leave what happens? They leave the bar. Steven's mom comes to get him because he's late for the wedding. He's late.
Like, get ready.
The rest of the guys go and get ready at Mike and Nick's house because they live together. Yeah. And then you see Linda come to the house, and she's like, in shambles or whatever. And like, I think it's clear that her and Nick are dating.
I think they're in a relationship.
Yeah, and so like she asked that, like she's saying that she needs to get out of her dad's house, and she asked Nick if since they're leaving, could she stay at their house? And she was like, I'll pay you. I just need to get out of my father's house. He's like, I can't take it anymore. And so he says, of course, no problem. And so I think at the bar, was that the first or second time?
So they're all now getting for the wedding, and then they kind of just go all. I think do they go to the wedding now at this point because they're all wearing their tuxes and everything.
Yeah, I think it was like so much chaos.
Yeah,
but yeah, so they go. They go to the wedding, attend the wedding. Steven and Angela get married, and then at the reception, you see once again, like I said, it seemed like the entire town is just there. And it's also it's a reception for the wedding, but it also seems like a celebration, a send off for Michael and Nick as well, since they're all going off to war. You get a mention from I believe John saying he said, I would have I'd be going with you guys to Nam, if it wasn't for my knees.
He said it's for his knee.
His knee. I think he's like a former football player or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, great guy, very jolly. He's also a little overweight and like
He
owns the bar. It seems like he's definitely a business owner, and he enjoys drinking and eating a lot. But
so the wedding goes fine. We're at the reception, like everybody's just partying to have a good time.
I mean, you can definitely tell this movie is in the fucking 70s, especially with like people drinking like they are, people hanging out doing their thing, Stan punching a bridesmaid in the face. Like a dude is like grabbing a bridesmaid's ass, and Stan gets upset and punches her instead of him. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, even like John is the worst because he goes because the guy he was at it was the singer who was singing on stage, and he gets off. He starts dancing with I think the woman, either Stan's wife or his girlfriend or whoever he was dancing with.
Yeah.
And Stan sits down, and you see John just kind of giggling.
Oh, yeah.
Like kind of like egging him on.
Yeah, it's just a wedding. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm like,
Dan just goes, "I'm gonna go get my gun," and then John goes, "Yeah, you go get it." I'm like, John.
yeah,
But it was like, yeah, everybody's having a good time. You see, fucking, I guess because I met Christopher Walken in like the '90s, like early
okay,
2000s, so he was
cool.
already a bit of an older man. It's like meeting, like when you meet, or get introduced to Sam Jackson, he was already an older man, or like Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman. So to
Hmm.
see this, a young Christopher Walken out here basically breakdancing on the floor, having a great time in his
It was
wedding.
crazy seeing Christopher Walken and even De Niro that young for me. You know, like
Yeah.
because they both
Oh,
look.
so I know I've seen like Casino and stuff like that, or like
Yeah, but I don't know. He just there was
or
something.
Taxi Driver. I think Taxi Driver was just his youngest. That was his like first movie.
Yeah, but I don't know what it is. Is like he still just looked so. I mean, maybe it's just because because I've seen Taxi Driver, you know, on like a lot of like
Yes, you're
younger.
right. That generation did just have old faces. It's
Yeah,
like I
right.
will watch some of the like obviously you know I love basketball, so like I'll watch some of the older games from like back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's like these are college kids, but they look like they have mortgages and three kids. Like the '70s was a rough time to be a teenager in your early 20s.
He didn't really believe in like moisturizer then, you know. He did put stuff on.
God, yeah, how you turn 20 when you look just like your dad, but like for
Yeah.
real?
I don't know. There was it was all the lead, so it made people go bald quicker and everything too. I don't know, man, but
But yeah, so so yeah, this is not Christopher. So while Nick is dancing like with the bride, like the group takes a photo, it's like the wedding party,
Mhm.
and then but what's her name? Linda's kind of dancing by herself, so we see Michael go over and dance with her,
Yeah.
and then like he offers to get her a drink, so they go to the bar. You can clearly see that he has a thing for her as well.
Hmm.
He knows that she's like with Nick or whatever, but he still kind of has feelings for her as
He
well.
even goes, he does like a partial go and kiss, and he's like, never mind, I'm going to drink instead. And then he just proceeds to get sloshed while this
Yeah.
woman stands there. She's like just standing there a little awkwardly. Like they're friends, they know each other, you know, they've known each other for a long time. But he's just like, let's get a drink. And he's just like shot after shot while he's kind of leaning on this woman. I'm like, all right, this is an interesting dynamic y'all have going on there for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so while they're dancing, they're at the bar. Sorry, while they're at the bar, Mike and Linda, Nick, and the other guys come over because like Stan he got into a fight on
Yeah.
the dance floor or whatever, so they get him out of there.
Hmm.
They bring him to the bar, and right before this, we saw like I want to say a Marine or somebody, a
He's
guy from
A green beret from Nam.
Green Beret. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's what they said.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, in full uniform or whatever. So initially, I thought he was coming to get them.
Yeah, same
Like,
actually.
that's what I was like. God damn! Like they
Mm.
don't play games. But no, he's just there to attend the wedding. He's just sitting at the bar having a drink.
Yeah.
And so Mike, Nick, and Steve see him, and they kind of want to like we're going to Vietnam very soon.
Mm.
What's it like? And the guy's like very much ignoring them and
Yeah.
not giving them the time of day. And then like when he finally does, he says "fuck it."
Yep.
And
Yeah.
like you see, he's like there's a certain like he's just literally not there.
Hmm.
Um, he's like very distant, and I think this is where you start to see this disillusion in Michael
Hmm.
first.
Yeah.
And so, what happens? Yeah, after they they meet with the soldier, they kind of get that weird reaction from him, just saying "fuck it" about what it's
Yeah.
like in Vietnam. We get like the final scene at the wedding, in the wedding where there's this ceremony, basically like the bride and the groom drink from a cup, and
Hmm.
if you don't spill, it marks like a good you're gonna have a good marriage.
Yeah.
And then we see that right at the end of them like taking the sip, the bride spills like one or two drops on her dress.
So I'm not saying it's her fault for all of this, but I'm not saying it's not because she spilled. All right. She had one job.
Red wine on a white dress. Y'all would have seen
I
that
mean,
shit. How drunk y'all?
she had one job. All right. Just don't
Yeah.
spill the cup. And then,
But yeah, so after the wedding, the bride and the groom drive off, and like the groomsmen kind of follow them out or whatever,
hmm.
and they start like chasing the car. And this is where the scene you get where like what's his name? Michael starts running through the streets, like just stripping off his tux and his clothes and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then at one point he's just butt ass naked. They are in like some basketball court in some park or something like that.
Mhm.
And Nick finds him, covers him up, and
Yeah.
then they just
This
basically
this is also how you know it's the 70s because that man's got a bush. All right. He's just. There's just things that tell you it's the
even in the dark, even in the like, it was like a bird's eye view. I was like, God damn it!
Yeah. I'm like, holy crap! All right, yeah. So you can't see anything because there's just a lot of hair there.
But that's how they got past the the PG censors.
Fair, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so like when they're in the park, both Mike and Nick, Nick basically makes Michael promise. He was like, don't leave without me, or don't leave me in Vietnam, or something like that. Kind of this pact that they're. We start going.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah, because also right at the end of the wedding, Nick proposes to Linda because she
Yeah.
catches the bouquet, and then Nick's like, "Hey, can we get married? Like, will you marry me?" And she's like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely." So I think there's also some of that going on. If he's like, "I need to make sure I get back. I love this town. Don't leave me there," because he's like, "Even if I die, just don't fucking leave me there." Basically, it
Yeah.
seems.
Hmm.
But
And yeah, so the next morning, the guys minus Steven, since he's with his bride,
yeah.
they all go hunting, the deer hunting for the last time, and it's all in good fun. Like I think Axel or somebody or John, one of them, gets out of the car to pee, and they drive off,
Yeah,
and then like tries to get it.
that was funny.
So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, and then like so they make it to the top of the mountain or whatever, and there's all most of them are still dressed in the tuxes from the night before, so they need to get changed before they can go on. And this is where we
Hmm.
get a weird, and this is what I'm saying. Like it's like it started, then like I think it started with the exchange with the Green Beret. Sorry,
Yes, and
in my mind. But it
yeah,
was
yeah.
just like there was this kind of disillusionness to Michael. So it was just like he was already dressed, ready to hunt or whatever. Like so he parks the car, everybody's getting ready. Stan has forgotten his boots or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well,
And
just also really quick too, because even earlier when they're leaving the steel mill, Stan says something to Mike where he's basically like, "Man, I don't understand you sometimes." So there's some kind
yeah.
of like,
Hmm.
they're friends, they're together,
And
but there's
even yeah, to your point right there, when they were leaving the wedding and they were
Mhm.
walking the bride and groom to the car, Stan and Mike were kind of going back at it because
Yeah,
I think
and Nick
Ben
too.
made some comments. So as I was reading the synopsis about this, apparently Angela's pregnant by a kid but it's not Mike's. Sorry, not Steven's kid.
Well, yeah, because or no, Steven tells Nick after the wedding too, before he gets in the car, he's like, "Hey,
Hmm.
yo, that's not my child. We haven't had
Yeah.
sex."
Hmm.
But then Nick's like, "Hey, doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah.
You love her. She
Hmm.
loves you. You
And then
know."
I feel like Stan comes over and says something to the effect, and I think that's why they kind of start going back and forth. But anyway, like you said, they started with the steel mills, and then it continued kind of at the wedding as well, and
Hmm.
then now at the excuse me, when they're on the mountain deer hunting or whatever, Stan needs boots or whatever, and
Hmm.
Michael brought an extra pair, but he was like, I'm sick of um always having to lend you things, like you're never prepared. It's like kind of like a every man for himself type of thing.
Yeah.
um, and then like they have an exchange, and then like what's his name, Stan starts calling Mike out, calling him like homosexual and things like that, and it was
Yeah.
just like this weird tension. Like I said, I think that's why it was like maybe it was Stan, so maybe it had nothing to do with the experience with the guy from the army, but maybe it was just because it was Stan. And like you said, Stan's a good guy, but he runs his mouth a lot, so it's like you do
Stan's
get a little bit annoyed of hearing his voice.
Mike is kind of a weird dude.
Hmm.
Stan's a dick. Like obviously, like there's a lot of good things about both of them in other ways too. But like Stan's absolutely 100% a dick. Michael's kind of weird, and like Nick is kind of like the mediator between. But
Yeah,
because it's really like Nick, Steven, and Mike are like the best friends of
yeah.
everything. Those are guys they work with, and they're friends with them. But like it's really like, especially like Mike and Nick are really
Yeah.
close.
Hmm.
Yeah, you go from there.
And so, yeah, like you said, Nick kind of plays mediator, gives Stans the boots or whatever. They go on hunting, and we see Mike shoots a deer like with one shot.
Yeah,
Like,
and he was saying like earlier too, like that's so key is like when you hunt anything, it is true. Like if you shoot a deer, it should be one shot, one kill. That's because
Mhm.
I go deer hunting. Like if you need more than two, like one shot, it's kind of like why are you out here? But one shot that kills the deer. It's the most humane way, most painless way possible. So he's like tells that to him, and what does he do? One shot. He's very skilled at what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so after hunting, they all go back to John's bar to drink, and as they're drinking, I think one of them, maybe Axel or somebody like that. It was somebody surprising playing like the piano,
Mhm.
and they
Oh,
kind
that
of
was John too. Yeah.
it was John. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't for some reason I couldn't tell I mean I can tell the difference between Axel
Yeah.
and John, But yeah,
Axel's the big guy with the beard. John's the big guy without a beard.
so you got it,
Yeah,
Axel.
exactly. Yeah, Axel. Yeah.
But yeah, so he's playing the piano, and you just see the three that are about to leave for Vietnam really taking in this these last moments that they
Yeah.
have with at home with their families and all that. I will say it was interesting too, like the song "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You."
Hmm.
I feel like they did it twice in this movie. In the first,
Yeah.
they did it when they were first at the bar.
Hmm.
Christopher Walken is singing. Sorry, Nick is singing it, and then the wedding singer also sings it at the reception.
Hmm.
I thought it was going to come back at the end. I was surprised at the song they sang at the end because
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be that one since it had played. I thought it was a foreshadowing thing.
Got you. Yeah, that would have made sense. Yeah.
But yeah, so and then the next scene we get is them jumping to the in Vietnam.
Hmm.
And I thought, because once again, this is an hour. Like that whole what we just said, it was an hour of the film.
Yeah.
And we hadn't like it took them so long to see a deer. Because
Yeah.
I can only relate to films if you do what you say in your title. Uh, and then yeah, they weren't even at war yet. And I was like, God damn, this is a lot of buildup.
Hmm.
And like I said, the wedding to me later on, it really didn't mean anything. We know Steven's married. Boom. Okay.
I think what they were really trying to go for with all of this is just showing like the relationship that all these men had,
Mhm.
and like because then it gives you a really good idea of like what is their life before they leave,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
you see what their life is when they return later, and it's very different. And I think that's really kind of what they were going for. But I do think instead of like an hour to get to this point, you could have been like 40 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like,
That's all. And then I was like, you're
yeah.
entirely like everything that was shown there was necessary, right? It
Mhm.
does like come back, like you said, it gives you it showed you the relationship between both Mike and Nick and like all six of the main guys, right? It showed you their relationships, the relationship with their significant others, their relationship to the town and how
Mhm.
they fit into it. So like you're totally right. I know I'm just nitpicking on
No, for sure. I mean, I would have cut out every scene of Stan being an Uber dick, and I think we would have been good. All right.
that's necessary when Mike comes back.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then finally we jump to Vietnam,
Mhm.
and this I think the brutality of Vietnam was just like insane, just right off the bat. So we see like there's just a bunch of dead soldiers,
Mhm.
and like Mike is like laying with them,
Yeah.
and then this Vietnam soldier comes, kind of like he's literally one to I guess clear the area, and
Mhm.
like he finds like a little bunker, and you see like a bunch of women and children hiding. And he just takes a grenade, throws it in there, and walks off. I was like, "Holy God,
Yeah.
shit!"
It's ridiculous. Like
Yeah,
this. Whew, yeah.
and I think it's just such a transition, such a tonal shift. I mean,
Mhm.
granted, they are in the war zone, right? So it was like
Yeah.
I think it was necessary for you. Yeah, we were all happy go lucky at this wedding. Now we are at war.
Yeah, like it's
And
kind of really, it emphasizes like they had no, because if you even look at that bar scene that they had where they were like the Green Beret, they're like, "Yo, tell us about it. We're excited. We want to go." And then the Green Beret is just like, "Fuck it." And then like they're even kind of like in the way they were kind of like making fun of them. So like you have like this jolly nature, and all of a sudden you're like, "Nope, that's not what this movie is. That is nothing like this at
yeah,
all." No, we are throwing grenades in bunkers full of women and children. Finger
yeah.
cannon. Yeah.
And so yeah, that Vietnam soldier does that, and then like I think one mom and her child actually survived the explosion, so they make it out.
Hmm.
And the Vietnam soldier is about to gun them down, and like
Yeah.
Mike comes out with a flamethrower, but he's kind of too late. The
Yeah.
mother and child get shot, but he's able to take down the guy. He burns him first, and then he like just fires a bunch of shots into him, and you can even see the savagery in this. It was like the guy was burning. He shoots him like to put him out of his misery, but then like keeps firing.
Keep
So
fucking
like, and I think I love. We talk about this all the time. It was just like the beauty of film is just like you don't have to tell me
hmm
what this person is going through. You can show me. Like in that scene, he burns a man, shoots him dead, and then continues firing even though he's already dead.
Yeah,
That tells you exactly what you need to know about this person's mind state without
100%.
you having to exposit it to me.
Yep.
And I think I always highlight it because it was like this is the part of storytelling I can appreciate, especially
Hmm.
when it comes to film.
Yeah.
And so you see a helicopter fly in, and Mike and no, Nick and Steven are part of the special forces, and
Well, I
so
think
like,
Mike's special forces, and they're just like normal infantry that came in afterwards or something like that.
sorry, yeah, you're right,
Hmm.
And so yeah, they come in to collect him, but it was like before they can collect Mike, um, there's kind of an explosion, and then
Mhm.
next thing you see like they're all captured.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, this is what I was saying because I've seen this movie before, just only one.
Okay.
But
This is my first time. I saw the Russian roulette scene and like the
Mm.
beginning one, not even the end one, just the beginning one. So I was
Okay.
pretty much going to this movie pretty blind, except for that
No,
one
I
thing.
had seen it before, but it was just like I said, it was like just seeing how I remember it starting with a wedding, starting really light, but it
Okay.
was just like the important scenes. Like it seemed like they kind of ran through them, and then
Hmm.
the wedding was so. Now, granted, do I need hours of footage of them being tortured? And no, not at all.
I mean, it sounds like that's what you want. All right. I'm just, I'm just saying.
And that is on your boy.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you don't want that. All.
But so they all get captured, and you just see them in this imprisonment where basically like there's an encampment on the river, so like all of their cages are immersed in water or
Hmm.
whatever, and then, like one at a time, or actually two at a time, they get pulled out of their cages and forced to play Russian roulette.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just very intense because you see like you don't know how long they've been here, and that's also another thing that I love. It was like they didn't tell us stuff. It was like you can just get it
Yeah.
from like so like you see like what's his name? Steven is basically just mentally broken. So like
Hmm.
every time he just hears the spinning of the chamber or
Yeah.
the click of the trigger, he's triggered. And
Yeah.
because so like even just with that, you can see that they've been there for a while and they've been forced to play for a while,
Hmm.
and they're like some of the last survivors. And so we see that Mike and Steven are forced to go against one another. And like you see Mike is just like being the strong one, like Steven, you got this. Like don't even worry about it. And then like the guy who's like I guess moderate that's not moderating, but like the one
Yeah.
that's kind of
In
moderating the
charge of the
game.
game. Yeah.
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 You see like that, and that's the thing. It was like their captors. There's one guy moderating, and then like all the other soldiers are kind of like holding guns to them, forcing them to do this, but
Yeah.
also betting on like
Hmm.
who'll survive. So it's just a very intense situation. And one little trivia thing about this movie, when they were casting the guy to moderate,
Uh-huh.
they needed somebody like intense, like,
Okay.
and so the casting director went and got somebody that hated Americans, like truly hated
Yeah.
Americans. So like that guy when he was like, and also because they casted one guy, but he couldn't strike or smack De Niro, right? He just kind of wouldn't do it or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
And so like they got a guy that was like, no, fuck Americans, I'll slap the shit out of this bitch. I don't give a fuck.
He's like,
It played well because it was just like he was like, and that's the thing. A lot of the time, I think De Niro's told him not to tell Walken. So like a lot of times when like Walken was getting hit, those were true
yeah.
reactions to those moments where we're just like it's already like really intense like you because you can die in this moment and then
Yeah.
being forced to do it and it was like I think these scenes were like they were shot masterfully like the acted like even better. It was just like
Mhm.
a great and intense scene. Like you're right, I didn't want this longer. I
Yeah.
think it was like I was eager to get to something right
Sure.
after an hour of build up,
Yeah.
and when you got to it and it was just like it was you give it 10 minutes tops with
Hmm.
it this, and it was just like come on like but yeah, so like so first we get Mike versus Steven,
Hmm.
and and that's what I love about like these different characters, right? Like Steven is like is broken. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't want to play the game, he doesn't want to die, he just wants to go home. And Mike is like there being his cheerleader, championing him, like taking hits
Hmm.
from the other captors and the moderators, like you got this, man, you got this. And so Steven puts a gun to his head, pulls the trigger, but he points it at the ceiling.
Yeah.
So because of that, they put him in a cage with the rats. Like so, it's like a cage. Once all their cages are submerged in water for the most
Hmm.
part, and so they put him in a cage with rats and all the dead bodies of the former players.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like it's a bunch of drowned people. Because this one, like the cage they're in, they're like waist deep up to
Hmm.
water. But the one they put Steven in because he like pulled the shot last second. It's like he's literally can get his face above water, and he's like
Yeah,
treading water.
and then even then, you see like when we first come to the scene and you see them being trapped, you saw a guy like kind of poking at
Yeah.
that cage, kind of forcing people down
Yeah.
to either go with the rats or drown. And so um, we see Mike. Mike goes back in the cage and he's
Nick.
talking to Nick, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And Nick is like very quiet, but
Yeah.
also like he's also broken as well. But I think he's holding it a lot better than than Steven was.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike comes up with a plan, and he was just like, okay, because they're noticing like the cage is getting empty,
Yeah.
and like because the other participants are dying, and so he's like, we need to come up with a plan. I'm gonna, because these are basically betting guys. They hate us. They, whatever. So like, I'm gonna ask for more bullets,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there we're gonna fight our way out of here. And
Yeah.
I thought that was like very smart in the moment because it was like obviously he's giving you a gun,
Mm-hmm.
right? But and then like obviously the more bullets, the better chance of like that one will be in the chamber and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so Mike and Nick go against one another, and then like this is where you see like Mike goes first, the chamber clicks, no bullet,
Yeah.
and then Nick goes, and you can see he's terrified.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, once again, who wouldn't?
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
like it's just like it's really weighing in on him, and like he's getting hit, but he doesn't want to do it. And then like, but Mike's still there, like just giving him encouragement, like you got this, we got this, we got this.
Yeah. He's
And
like,
so
it's going to be empty. It's empty. Don't
yeah,
worry about this.
mhm,
It's empty. Yeah.
yeah. And then so what's his name? Nick pulls the trigger, it clicks empty.
Yeah.
And then this is where we get Mike saying it was like, I want 3 bullets. Like fuck that, I want 3.
Yeah.
And then so the guy, Texas, he pushed the 3 bullets in. Now actually Mike does it first.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He
With
does.
the 3 bullets.
50-50 shot. He literally gambled everything on a 50-50 because I'm assuming 6 rounds in that gun. There's 3.
Yeah.
50-50. Yeah.
And so I think Nick was supposed to go, but now he was like, whoa. Like this is
Yeah.
luckily, so this is when Mike acts. He takes the gun, he shoots it at the moderator 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 other guys, and then like they just fight their way out of there using the AK-47s that the guys have against them.
Mm-hmm.
And they take out the rest of the captors.
Yeah.
And then but we do see that Nick got hit with a bullet.
Yeah, Nick gets shot in the leg.
Yeah, he gets shot in the leg. And then so first he puts Nick in the river on like a tree trunk or whatever to use as like kind of a raft. And then he goes and releases what's his name? Steven.
Mm-hmm.
And then he puts him on the raft as well. And like they're floating down the river, like they don't, not necessarily know where they're going, but they're at the moment they're free.
Yeah.
But you do see what I really, and once again, I think this whole scene was like just really, really, really great. We're just like they're still covering Steven's mouth because even though he's free and he's escaping, he still can't mentally get out of there. So he's just like he's still freaking out and stuff like that. And so like you see them like cover his mouth to like so they don't alert any Vietnamese soldiers as they're escaping.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point there's a helicopter and like an allied force. I don't know if it's American or just like because it did seem like it wasn't even if the people that were captured, they weren't all American.
No. Yeah.
There was definitely some. Yeah,
Well,
sorry.
there were like Vietnamese, people on the U.S.'s side. I don't know the full history of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to say anything incorrect, but I just know that it wasn't all like Vietnam. It wasn't like Vietnamese versus American. There was definitely like some overlapping.
Yeah, America had Vietnam allies in Vietnam. I think there were probably also French, soldiers and British soldiers, etc., and potentially even Russian soldiers on the other side. But yeah, I know the very, very basics of the Vietnam War. Yeah,
but yeah, so we do see a helicopter that passes by. So like the 3 guys try to get on. First, they get Mike because they get Nick because he's been shot, so he's injured. And then as they're getting as Mike and Steven are trying to get on, like something like there's a little bit of malfunction with the helicopter, and they just drop to the back into the river.
Steven just falls because Steven was kind of useless at this point in time. Yeah, and then, so then Steven falls, and then Mike jumps in after him because he's like, I'm not going to leave him behind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, and even you see like Nick is like really like trying to fight the guys in the ship to help his friends.
Yep.
But yeah, so Nick flies off in a helicopter while Mike and Steven land in the river. And then we do see that Steven, when he landed in the river, like he broke his leg.
Mm-hmm.
So like Mike pulls him to the riverbank or whatever. And he was like, Steven keeps saying, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs.
Yeah.
And he pulls up his pants a little bit and you just see bone like sticking out of the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mike carries, excuse me, I'm so sorry.
No
Mike
worries.
carries Steven to like excuse me, some like
They're going to Saigon. Like he carries
refugee
Steven
camp.
out of the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he carries Steven out of the woods, and they're kind of all like a bunch of refugees and people going to Saigon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we see what's his name? We see Nick at some army hospital getting better. There's a really intense scene where not intense, sorry, that seems over dramatic, but a very touching scene where like they're asking him like making sure he is who he says he is.
Hmm.
Right. They're just like, are you and I can't even remember his name. It was like Nikavades or something like that.
Yeah, it was like a Russian, Slovak
Yeah.
name or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like they ask him, is that your name? He says first he's like very distant, because he's just sitting on a little balcony, just looking at the horizon.
Hmm.
And so he says, yes, that's my name. And then they ask him, it was like, what's your mother and father's date of birth? And he just breaks down in tears.
Yeah. Well, I think it's even shown like he's because of everything he's been through, like he knows basic stuff, but like he's kind of forgotten some stuff back
Yeah,
home.
and I think that's why I brought on the test because it's a simple question. It's like
Mhm.
I feel like it'd even be worse. If it was like, "What's your name?" and you couldn't remember it.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
and so after that scene or whatever, we see him trying to call home, and then he kind of changes his mind,
Hmm.
and then he goes out into the city, and I believe Saigon, I believe, right?
Yeah, they're in Saigon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So he goes out in Saigon, and he's walking around. First, we see him like I guess go to he goes just like kind of to a bar or strip club type of thing.
Hmm.
A woman comes over to him, offering him her services. He goes upstairs with her, but like and kind of changes his mind
Yeah.
because her kid is in the room or something like
He
that.
like, didn't really want to go up in the first place, but she was like, "No, no, come on, come on," and she kind of kept
Yeah.
pulling and grabbing him. And then he was like, "All right, fine." And she's like, "What should I? What do you want to call me?" And he said, "Linda." But
Linda,
then the
yeah.
kid starts crying, and he's like, "Nope, I'm out. I don't want to do this. I'm getting
Mhm.
out of here." Yeah.
And then like so he's walking around Saigon later that night, and he just hears a gunshot,
Yeah.
and like so he walks towards it, like what the hell is that? And then he sees like this door doesn't go in, but he just sees there's a bunch of like dead bodies kind of out
Hmm.
front.
Yeah.
And then he meets Julian, who's like, "Do you want to go in?"
Yeah.
And he was just like, "No, no, no, no." And but Julian's like very pushy,
Yeah.
so like he walks him into this gambling den or whatever, and he just sees two guys sitting at a table, a bunch of like businessmen, surrounding it, and it's two men playing Russian roulette
Hmm.
for money
Yeah.
or
Quick
whatever.
record, I have no idea how the betting works for Russian roulette. I was trying to figure it out while watching this, and I was like, are you just betting that he survives, doesn't survive? Where are we going with this? I don't really know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, so Nick sees this and it was like, so one guy goes, he pulls the trigger, the magazine is sorry, it's empty,
Hmm.
and then Mike kind of just because of his PTSD, he freaks out, he grabs a gun.
Nick's doing this right now. Not
Nick,
my.
sorry,
Yeah,
God,
no worries.
so
Yeah,
sorry, so
yeah.
sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure we weren't confused
Yeah,
about
yeah,
Nick
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Nick grabs the gun and kind of like has like a bit of an outburst. He like first he aims at the other player or whatever.
Yeah, I think he does himself first.
Yeah,
Like
okay, that's what it
other
is. Yeah,
player, click, and
yeah,
people were like, "What the fuck? Get this dude the
yeah,
hell
yeah.
out of here!" Yeah.
So like he runs out, and we see that as he's having this outburst in the gambling den with the Russian roulette, Mike is there,
Hmm.
and he hasn't seen Nick because obviously they got separated once they escaped,
Yeah.
and like so he tries to go find like as everybody there's a bunch of commotion after Nick does this, and Mike tries to talk to him but can't because he's running out with Julian,
Hmm.
and Julian mentions it was just like, oh, we can make you a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or
Julie's
whatever.
like, "Hey, bitch, you want to make some motherfucking money?" Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm saying, yes.
But yeah, so and then I guess shortly after, like Mike couldn't, talk to Nick, and then shortly after, we do see that Mike has made it back to the States, and
Hmm.
there's like banners in the town in Pennsylvania. They were just saying "Welcome home, Michael" or
Yeah.
whatever. Everybody's waiting at his house. Obviously, Linda's living there, but it was like everybody's waiting for him,
Hmm.
and he's in a taxi, and like he's about to pull up to the house, and he kind of just tells the taxi driver to keep driving.
Yeah. He's like, "Nope, I do not want to be around all these motherfuckers right now."
Yeah.
Like, no way. Yeah.
And so instead of going to the welcome party, he just checks into a hotel.
Yeah.
And then like he sits by himself, and like I think this is where once again I was like, that's why I kind of really enjoyed this movie because it was showing you the before, the during, and the after, what it's like to go to war.
Yeah.
And so like he just kind of sits in the room by himself for the night, and then the next day he goes to the house, and it was like people had waited the whole night for him.
Yeah.
And then like everybody leaves except for Linda, because obviously she lives there. So like once everybody's gone, he goes in the house, knocks on the door, and Linda's just really excited to see him.
Yeah.
And so like they catch up for a bit, and this is where we find out that Nick has basically gone AWOL. Like he hasn't reached out to her.
Yeah. I think that the military said he deserted as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's AWOL. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Duh. Yeah. Sorry.
She's like, she hasn't heard anything from him. He hasn't responded to her letters. Hasn't called.
Yeah.
And I think then he goes. After that he goes. I think he walks her to work or whatever. And we see him kind of like, now he's like, people in the town are recognizing that he's back.
Yeah.
And like, it's a small town, so obviously everybody knows him. And he walks her to work, and then he goes to John's bar. Yeah. And that's where he finally gets the proper greeting from his friends. Obviously, Stan, being the hater that he is like, "Where the fuck you been at?"
Yeah, like, we all night, man. What the fuck? Yeah, because he meets him outside the steel mill. Yes, and they go to John's. Yeah, and they do all that. So there's still, like, it's like it is. They are excited, even with the weirdness that is Mike and Stan's relationship. There is still like I think really what like Stan would be like, I'd love to be your friend. I just don't understand you weird motherfucker. And Mike is like, I think you're a dickhead. So like, what are we gonna do? But yeah.
And so he goes after he meets back up with his friends. He goes back to Linda, and we do see them having
the bar. Sorry, so remember there was the bar. John tells him that Steven is actually back as well.
Yes,
he made it. Yeah,
thank you. And so he goes back to Linda first, and like I think they're talking because he like I think he mentioned. Oh, sorry, she mentioned like she was gonna make dinner or something like that, but he's kind of disheveled, and so he leaves. But then she ends up going to his hotel.
Yeah. So basically, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to make dinner." He's like, and he basically tells her like, "Look, I feel distant. I don't feel like right being here. I just need to go to like my hotel where I'm staying at."
I think it was like part of it was him being in that house.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
Probably for sure.
But I brought that up to say, and it was like you just mentioned it. Thank you. But he says it feels distant and far away. Him being home, feels distant and far away.
Yeah. So he walks out, but then Linda follows right behind.
Yeah. And so then he goes because he wants to find out where Steven is. So he goes to check in on Angela, and we see that she's had the baby. So I think he comes back in like 1970. So I think they left in 68. So it's been about 2 years or whatever.
Right, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah.
I just know I'm only saying that because the baby's like almost 2. It looks like.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the 70s. They didn't really act with babies. They're like, look at this small child. That small child who's clearly 4. No, they're 2 or they're 1.
Between 1 and 15, we don't know.
Exactly. It's the baby. What do you mean?
But yeah, so he's like not grilling, but he's probing Angela for information about Steven. And it's like she's just catatonic for some reason. But she writes down, I guess, an address. Actually, no, she writes down a number.
Yeah, phone number. Yeah,
she writes down a phone number, and so and then he tells her to take care of herself. And then he calls the number, gets in touch with Steven, and we see that Steven has lost both of his legs, and he's in like some type of, I guess, an army recovery
and stuff.
Yeah.
I think technically it doesn't really matter timeline wise, but he goes hunting with Stan, Axel, and John, and then doesn't. Yeah, it's basically all at the same time, right?
Yeah. So he calls Steven to find out where he is or whatever, and then they go hunting for a second time, and this time we do see that he's not able to shoot the deer.
Yeah.
And then they end up back at the bar, and this is where we see. I think what's his name? Stan is a little bit drunk, and they're
at the cabin for right now. They're at not the bar. They're at the cabin that they were
staying. Okay.
Yeah. And so as you said, Stan's kind of a drunk, and like Axel's fucking with him and being like, "What, you worried your girl's like getting blowing a park ranger?" And then Stan, being an uber dick, is like pointing a gun in Axel's face, which is like literally gun safety 101. I'm like, come on, man. But yes, just like pointing the gun, and because they're even talking like it makes Stan feel like a big man. They were kind of giving him shit about that in the past
Mhm.
too. But
And so, Mike sees, Stan pointing his gun, so he takes it from him,
mhm.
takes all the bullets out of the chamber, just puts one in, and like spins it,
Yeah,
and says, "You think you're a big man," and kind of aims it at him.
yeah. Well, just because I love the scenes. So he takes it, and then Stan's like, "What the fuck's your problem, man? It wasn't even loaded." And he was like, "Oh, really? It's not loaded." And then he fires it in the air, and then
Mhm.
says, "Bullshit, that's not loaded." Then takes out everything, puts in the one, and then points it at him and pulls the fucking trigger. Like,
Mhm.
ooh, ooh. Like, oh man, that was intense as fuck. Yeah.
And I think it goes to one just showing that his friends don't understand war. It
No.
was like, so it's very much how that soldier acted at the wedding
Mm-hmm.
is now Mike's reaction to like being in a part of Vietnam. And it
Absolutely.
reminded me of when we talked about Godzilla -1.
Mm-hmm.
And like, remember that young guy? Because that was World War II. I think this is the Vietnam War, but it was just like this idea that to be a man, to earn your stripes, is to go to war, is to fight for your country,
Yeah.
and but not understanding that what toll that has, right?
Yes.
And so the veterans in Godzilla -1 were just like, live. That's the mark of a real man. You don't need to sacrifice yourself to prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also now in the Deer Hunter we see like Mike has been to war, and he can't, like, he still loves these guys, but he was like he can't hang around with them because they don't understand what he's been through.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't even think. I mean, obviously he went the extra step because he was a POW,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just like they especially don't understand what he's going through. So like to play around with like guns and your life, when I've seen like he's held people in his hands and they've seen them die and stuff like that. It was like he can't relate to them anymore.
Yeah.
But you're right. This was another very intense. I think that's why, like I said, my frustration was like the wedding was cool, but
Mhm.
let's get to the better parts of this movie.
Yeah.
Because these are these intense scenes. Anytime for some reason with that Russian roulette,
Yeah.
like those scenes are the ones that really, they really like bring out.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the central theme. And, like, don't get me wrong, I literally finished this movie right before Mike and I started recording, so I didn't, like, fully digest everything. But I did the old Google search, and the Russian roulette is a metaphor for the unpredictability of war and the chaos that it sows on people. So, I sound smart because I researched on the internet.
Not before you said because I did Google. Like you
Google.
you say the stuff, and then in the clip notes say like your sources. But yeah, so after that in exchange at the cabin with Stan,
Mm-hmm.
you see Mike go to visit Steven.
Yes.
And this is where like he's really trying to get Steven to go back to be with Angela and the baby.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, you see Steven saying, "Oh, I'm not right, or I'm not fit," basically. To be, sorry, go on.
He doesn't have legs. Like,
Yeah.
he's a double amputee, and he just does not want to go back to like home or that world where he's gonna be an amputee and like have to figure all that shit out for sure. Yeah,
But yeah, he can't. I guess he doesn't feel whole, obviously. Like, but it was just like both mentally and physically, he doesn't feel fit to be with her, be with his wife.
yeah,
But Mike, kind of, I don't know if he forces him, but he definitely like says that you can't keep isolating yourself, right?
yeah.
You can't stay there. Like you're home now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why even when he was talking about like feeling distant and far away, he was like, I get that, but you are home now.
Yeah.
And like you have to bring yourself back in, whatever way you can.
Yeah, because like even though like Mike is clearly dealing with so much shit and is still not completely right himself, but even with all of that, he's still like, but we got to try the best we can almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one thing you saw that when they were prisoners of war and going through that, and it was like he's still keeping that up.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
He definitely finds strength in helping, like being the strength for others,
yes,
right?
100%.
And so I think
at this time too, Steven reveals that he's been getting money from Saigon. So so then that also kind of tips off Mike. He's like, "Holy fuck, Nick must be alive." That's the only
and it was like, and what is he doing to make this much money in Saigon?
Yeah, exactly. And there's only one thing. There's only two things people do in Saigon Apparently, there's a lot of brothels and there's Russian roulette. That's
I love how
apparently.
you did apparently.
Yeah.
Respect. Unbeknownst to me.
But yeah.
And so Mike returns
Well,
to.
right before, just to touch on it too, Mike and Linda sleep together around this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I think that's kind of like a as a way to deal with all of this and everything. Even
Well,
though,
I think you did find them finding comfort in one another.
yes, yeah,
Um,
throughout everything. So yeah, just to like say that like Meryl Streep and all of her performances were phenomenal. Her and Mike find comfort in each other, and she does her best to stay strong through all of this. There's other great scenes with her too. Just want to make sure we're shouting those out. But yeah, so now he returns to Vietnam. Yeah.
Yeah, so he returns to Vietnam to find Nick. He finds Julian first and kind of bribes him to show him where the gambling den is, where he can find Nick.
For the record, mad props for Mike not just sticking a gun in his face, because that was like my thought. I was like, okay, I need to find this out.
But I don't know if that man fears death like that.
That's fair, but I'm.
Now, granted, he does facilitate it, but it might be one of those things where like he talks a big game, and he's like a gun in his face, and he was like, wait.
It's just like bigger man than me. Like that man just dropped like thousands of dollars to do this, and I would have been like, no, tell me right the fuck now. Like, but he's a better man than me apparently. So what are you gonna do?
And so ultimately, Mike finds out where Nick is. He's in some gambling den, and he's kind of become like a star in where just like, and you see he's very much an addict, and he's still like suffering from PTSD and like coping with heroin, like a heroin addiction, and also like just playing this game. He just feels numb.
Yeah. Fun fact for trivia wise, how Christopher Walken, because he looks like Christopher Walken, young Christopher Walken, skinny, but like this guy's gaunt, from all that. So Christopher Walken only ate like, rice and bananas and water to get that look, to lose all that extra weight for these scenes in the end. He just water, bananas, rice, and that's all he had, and that gave him that emaciated drug addict look. Fun fact.
And so as Mike is sitting across the table from Nick, and he's trying to bring him back, like not even like physically, like just mentally bring him back. He was like, we're friends. He's like reminding him of their hunting trips and like their times in Pennsylvania and growing up and like all of their friends and stuff like that. And I think you do see a bit. He brings up the hunting trips as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And did you want to finish it?
I mean, sure, if you're cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's fresh on your mind, and I feel like it's really good.
So they're at this scene, they're sitting across from each other. Mike is like, Nikki, I love you, man. Like, believe me, like, let's go home. Don't do this anymore. And then, because Christopher Walken's character, Nick, did not remember Mike when he first saw him. So he's like steadily, while all this is going, he's probably still smacked out of his mind on drugs.
Yeah.
But, he's like kind of getting it back a little bit. And then he's like, oh, yeah, Mike, and the hunting trips. And then Mike's like, yeah. And then Nick is like, I can't remember which one, but they're like, yeah, one shot. And Nick's like, yeah, one shot. Because Mike grabbed his hand and pulled his hand down so he couldn't pull the gun. So Nick says, yeah, one shot. Uses his other hand to take Mike's hand off his own and then just bam. Oh, my God. Oh. And then like Mike rushes over there and like is cradling him and like crying and like screaming his name. And it's just like, holy fuck, the power of this scene, man. Like, whew. That is some dark, fucked up shit. Very good movies, but whew, man. So yeah. So unfortunately, Nick just killed himself because he was still kind of playing the game. Or I think even with that realization, he was like, I don't want to go back to the real world. This is all I know now. I'd rather have.
Well, it's either I don't want to go back or I can't. I mean, you saw it with Steven, but like I feel like you said, like we said earlier, when they were in the camp, Steven was very much like very vocal with breaking and crying and all this stuff. Nick was very silent, but you could see that it was affecting him. Right,
yeah, for sure.
And so I think with both of them, with their PTSD after that incident, it was just like there was no way I can go back home and like sweep this under the rug or anything like that. There's no way.
Yeah.
Right. So like you said, I don't know if it was just like him just playing the game, him cracked out of his mind, or him just being like, "There's no way I can go back." I get you. It's like I do have loved ones and all these different, but it was like I can't. The reason I am on drugs right now is because like I close my eyes and I see these things.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's me personally. I think that's what it was. It was like this ability to not be a civilian anymore.
Yeah.
You saw how Mike reacted to the stand and them like
Yeah.
kind of playing around with their lives. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think what's his name, Nick, could go back to breakdancing at somebody's wedding or like just singing in a bar or something like that. Like
Yeah.
that person is gone.
For sure. No, yeah, I think that's a really great analysis of that scene, for sure, of like what he's kind of going through. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so yeah, you see Mike kind of cradles Nick as he's dying, and then we jump to the church where they had the wedding. Now they're having Nick's funeral,
Mm-hmm.
and so like they carry his body to the cemetery. They bury him, and then they all end up back at John's bar.
Yeah.
And like everybody's like very like somber. They have a drink for Nikki,
Mm-hmm.
and then we see John he's cooking eggs while like everybody kind of sits at the table, and he starts singing "God Bless America" in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Then he comes out of the kitchen with the eggs and to like serve them, and then the rest of the group start singing along with him.
Yeah.
And then the movie, and then this is what I was saying. I was surprised it wasn't "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You."
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it would have hit the same. Like obviously, God Bless America, like this whole support the troops and and things like that. Like I think that's what they were going for. But I think talking about like foreshadowing and things like that, I feel like that song was what they were.
That would have been really cool.
I would assume would have been that conclusion.
Yeah. Honestly, that would have been really cool. Someone, if anyone listening to this is much better at editing movies and editing film and stuff like that, do an edit where it's "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You" and share it with everybody, especially with us, and let's see what it looks like, because I think that would be a really, and maybe just because the song's like too upbeat, you know what I mean? Like "Can't Take My Eye Off of You," like maybe
It's a tad upbeat, but it was like not until like the chorus of the hook.
Fair. Yeah,
I think it is very, very mellow until the like later in the song.
Yeah, until you hit that. Yeah. So maybe if you do it, all right. So person listening who's going to edit this video for us and send it to us for free, you're such a good.
You got homework.
Yeah, you got homework. Just make sure you cut it off before the chorus. But yeah, and as Mike said, that is the end of The Deer Hunter. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We always like to go and review our original rating. Mike, you gave this movie a 3.5 out of 5 before we started talking about it. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna boost it to a 4. Like I said, I think you're like this is why I enjoyed kind of giving it an initial review and then talking about it, because usually my initial reviews when I saw it by myself.
Yeah.
Talking about it, I do agree that the wedding, the earlier and longer scenes were necessary to really give you a full peek into the world that they're in. And like I said, that was really my only gripe, was just the length of the wedding. Because every other scene was just like powerful, and it was like I think that's what's crazy. Like putting yourself in these, like especially in those Russian roulette scenes, that's something I would never do. I wouldn't even play like that.
Yeah,
I have Nerf guns. I wouldn't even play like that. Like because I can feel there's certain scenes that can truly put you in that person's seat. You know what I'm saying? Like we talked about it with sorry to bring up the Meg too, but like being in that hear me out.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
But like being in that trench with me being like certain fear of the dark, certain fear of the ocean.
Yeah.
When they were actually in the trench and having to walk it, it was like that put me in the shoes of that character. I was just like, I hope they make it type of thing. So the movie wasn't important. It was the way that the director was able to put you in the shoes of the characters. Yeah. To really make you feel it. And then in the same way, this movie, like just the idea of it, and it was like the intensity of those scenes, especially when they were in the POW camp, where it was just like they're getting like attacked and like forced to play this game, right? Yeah. And it was just like you can like them breaking down in tears and like sometimes laughing because it was just like, I mean, what is life type of thing. It was just like, am I going to make it out of here? Mm-hmm. And it was like they just really made those scenes intense. Yeah. And it was like it really puts you in it. It was like you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, we know that these are main characters, but like nobody had plot armor, so it was just like truly anybody can go at any time, and I was like even that added to it, to the tension, and to the anxiety. So it was like, yeah, my gripes had nothing to do with the movie itself, it was just more about I started this movie at fucking midnight,
For
and I
sure,
was
yeah.
shocked at that.
100%. 100%.
But no, so I'm gonna crank it to a 4. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. I gave it a 4. Do I want to elevate it to a 4.5? That's what I'm struggling with right now. And part of me thinks yes, part of me thinks no. So I'm going to cop out, baby. 4.25. We're going in between because it is a phenomenal movie. The powerful scenes, the emotions everyone is feeling is crazy. Yeah, you really get a sense for who these people are before and after, and for like what kind of like what war can do to people. And like, they try to spin it in as positive as, but it almost like it kind of shows you the senselessness of war and how much it can scar people and what it can really affect. And while just delivering phenomenal performances across the board from everybody. So 4.25 for me. Why am I not giving a 4.5? I'm not sure. Ask me tomorrow off the podcast. So when you see me in the street, just ask me, and maybe I'll give you a better answer then. But thank you so much for listening, everyone. We are the Meddling Kids. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us at 2meddlingkids on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us at 2meddlingkids@gmail.com. Mike, how can they reach out to you if they want to?
On Instagram at Days from Legendary.
Beautiful. And if you'd like to reach out to me, I am at EdHunt77 on Twitter and Instagram. And Hunt.comics is my comics handle for TikTok and Instagram. Oh, yeah, I'm a real estate agent. I forgot to mention at the beginning. Reach out to me, all real estate needs. Find my comic, Evil is a Weapon. And we'll see you next week with a brand new movie. Catch you, everybody.
Bye. That was not as
Yeah.